Welcome geniuses, I'm Genie, your best buddy for A-levels. In this channel, we'll bring you to explore the secret formula behind success.
So now we are going to derive the formula for the observed frequency when the source S is traveling away from the observer. So the observer is on the right, but the source is traveling away from it as it emits waves to the right. So it emits waves to the right, but it travels away with a speed of Vs to the left. So what would the observed frequency be? So the same thing, let's say the source is S. It produces waves with frequency Fs, and the period which is the time between two wave crests is Ts. So it is also at the same time moving to the left with a speed of Vs. But of course, the speed that the wave, the speed of the wave that it generates, the speed of the wave is Vw. So let's say after time Ts, what would be the distance traveled by the wave be? All right. So let's say the wave is traveling. So after a time of Ts, what would this distance be? So the distance traveled by the wave would be the speed, which is Vw, times the time, which is Ts. And at the same time, because this source is moving to the left, so the distance traveled by the source, which is S2, will be given by the formula the speed Vs times Ts. So therefore, after a time Ts, your source is now at this point. So from here, it will start to generate the wave crest all over again. But don't forget, the first wave crest that it generated here at the start there has already moved to here. So therefore, what is the distance between the first wave crest, which is this one, and the second wave crest, which is going to generate here? So what is the distance between these two wave crests? So the distance between these two wave crests would be given by S1 plus S2. So what is S1 plus S2 equals to? S1 plus S2 will be now equals to Vw Ts plus Vs Ts. So therefore, the observed period between two wave crests would be the distance between the two wave crests, Vw Ts plus Vs Ts, divided by the speed of the wave, which is Vw. So then now let's factorize the Ts, and you will get Vw plus Vs over Vw, and the whole thing times with Ts. So the observed frequency, which is the inverse of the period, observed period, so you will now get 1 over Ts times Vw over Vw plus Vs. So 1 over Ts gives you the frequency of the source. So you multiply by Vw over Vw plus Vs. And since your Vw over Vw plus Vs will be less than 1, so your observed frequency will be less than your source frequency. So that is how you derive this formula. So in this video, we will derive the equation for the frequency observed by an observer if a source S is traveling towards an observer, right? As the source S also emits a wave, all right? So what would the apparent frequency be observed by this observer? Now, in order to derive this equation, so let's start off with this source S. Now, it is producing waves at a frequency of Fs, and therefore the time interval between the waves that it creates is Ts. So you can imagine the time between two crests to be the time Ts. So at the same time, it is also moving forward with a speed of Vs. Now do not confuse the speed Vs, which is the speed of the source, with the speed of the wave, because as the wave is produced, it also travels forward with a speed of Vw. Alright, so now let's say the wave, the source S emits a wave here, okay, and after a time of Ts, the wave travels to this position. So the distance which is traveled by the wave, let's call it S1, will be equals to the speed times the time, which is the speed, which is Vw, times the time Ts. That means we are finding the distance traveled by the wave crest after a time Ts, that means after the period Ts. So at the same time, do you still remember that this source is traveling forward with a speed of Vs? So therefore, in the same time Ts, what is the distance traveled by this source? Let's call this S2. So this is your S2. So what is the distance traveled by your wave source? According to the same formula, distance traveled by the source is equal to the speed of the source, Vs, times the same time Ts. So this means that the source is now at this point. So it will start to emit a wave crest from here. Alright, so what will happen is now the distance between the first wave crest and the second wave crest is now a distance of S1 minus S2, which is this remaining distance. So that is the distance between the two subsequent wave crests. So the distance between the two subsequent wave crests, which is S1 minus S2, will be VWTS minus VSTS. So therefore, what would the for an observer, what would be the period between two observed wave crests be? So the period, which is the time taken between two wave crests, is given by the formula. The observed period, so TO, is given by the formula distance divided by the speed. So what is the distance between the two wave crests? We have said is VWTS minus VSTS. So divide by the speed of the wave, which is VW. So you can factorize the TS and you will get VW minus VS over VW, then the whole thing times TS. Now, so this will be the observed period. So what will be the observed frequency? The observed frequency will be the inverse of the observed period. So you just have to inverse the whole thing. So 1 over TS, VW minus VS. So what you will notice now is 1 over TS will give you the frequency of the source. So times VW over VW minus VS. So therefore, what you will notice is your observed frequency will be higher than your source frequency, because your VW divided by VW minus VS, which is smaller than VW, will give you a number of more than 1. So therefore, your observed frequency will be higher than your source frequency.
That's all for today's video. If you're interested in more genuine sharing by other geniuses, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on the notification bell, ding dong. Also, if you're struggling with 1 or 2 past year questions and the mark scheme just doesn't seem to help, Genie has got you covered. Feel free to let us know what question it is by filling in the Google form linked in the description below. GenieUs Hub will get genius teachers to fulfill your request for the solution. Genie will see you next time. Bye-bye.